Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Gnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadama Yam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapatakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahaganaraguna Tanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrisabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpataruscha Kripa Sindhupya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashattaya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaitat Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Prabhus, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So welcome to the reading session. Today we chapter 27, Lord Krishna and Balaram meets the inhabitants of Vrindavan.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam, Jai Prabhu.
Very bold. Once upon a time, while Lord Krishna and Balaram were living...
Prabhu, we don't see your screen.
Oh, really? I thought I was sharing. Okay, so once upon a time, while Lord Krishna and Balaram were living peacefully in their great city of Dwaraka, there was the rare occasion of a full solar eclipse, such as takes place at the end of every kalpa, or day of Brahma. At the end of every kalpa, the sun is covered by a great cloud, and incessant rain covers the lower planetary systems up to Svargaloka. By astronomical calculation, people were informed about this great eclipse prior to its taking place, and therefore everyone, both man and woman, decided to assemble at the holy place in Kurukshetra, known as Samanta Panchaka. The Samanta Panchaka pilgrimage site is celebrated because Lord Parashurama performed great sacrifices there after having killed all the Kshatriyas in the world 21 times. Lord Parashurama killed all the Kshatriyas, and their accumulated blood flowed like a stream. Lord Parashurama dug 5 big lakes at Shamanta Panchaka and filled them with this blood. Lord Parashurama is Vishnu Tattva, as stated in the Ishopanishad. Vishnu Tattva cannot be contaminated by any sinful activity. Yet, although Lord Parashurama is fully powerful and uncontaminated, in order to exhibit ideal character, he performed great sacrifices at Samanta Panchaka to atone for his so-called sinful killing of the Kshatriyas. By his example, Lord Parashurama established that the killing art, although sometimes necessary, is not good. Lord Parashurama considered himself culpable for the sinful killing of the Kshatriyas. Therefore, how much more are we culpable for such abominable unsanctioned acts? Thus, killing of living entities is prohibited from time immemorial all over the world. Taking advantage of the occasion of the solar eclipse, all important persons visited the holy place of pilgrimage. Some of the important personalities are mentioned as follows. Among the elderly persons, there were Akrura, Vasudeva, and Ugrasena. Among the younger generation, there were Gada, Pradyumna, Shamba, and many other members of the Yadu dynasty who had come there with a view to atone for sinful activities accrued in the course of discharging their respective duties. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Because almost all the members of the Yadu dynasty went to Kurukshetra, some important personalities like Aniruddha, the son of Pradyumna, and Kritavarma, the commander-in-chief of the Yadu dynasty, along with Shuchandra, Shuga, and Sarana, remained in the Dwaraka to protect the city. All the members of the Yadu dynasty were naturally very beautiful, and yet on this occasion, when they appeared duly decorated with gold necklaces and flower garlands, dressed in valuable clothing, and properly armed with their respective weapons, their natural beauty and personalities were 100 times enhanced. The members of the Yadu dynasty came to Kurukshetra in their gorgeously decorated chariots, resembling the airplanes of the demigods, pulled by big horses that moved like the waves of the ocean, and some of them rode on sturdy, stalwart elephants that moved like the clouds in the sky. Their wives were carried on beautiful palanquins by beautiful men whose features resembled those of Vidyadharas. The entire assembly looked as beautiful as an assembly of the demigods of heaven. After arriving in Kurukshetra, the members of the Yadu dynasty took their baths ceremoniously with self-control as enjoined in the Shastras, and they observed fasting for the whole period of the eclipse in order to nullify the reactions of their sinful activities, since it is a Vedic custom to give in charity as much as possible during the hours of the eclipse. The members of the Yadu dynasty distributed many hundreds of cows in charity to the Brahmanas. All those cows were fully decorated with nice dress and ornaments. The special features of these cows was that they had golden ankle belts and flower garlands on their necks. All the again took their bath in the lake created by Lord Parshurama. After this, they sumptuously fed the Brahmanas with first-class cooked food, all prepared in butter. According to the Vedic system, there are two classes of food. One is called raw food, the other is called cooked food. Raw food does not include raw vegetables and raw grains, but food boiled in water, whereas cooked food is made in ghee. Chapatis, dal, rice, and ordinary vegetables are called raw foods, as are fruits and salads. But puris, kachori, sangosas, sweet balls, etc. are called cooked food. All the Brahmanas invited on that occasion by the members of the Yadu dynasty were fed sumptuously with cooked food. The ceremonial functions performed by the members of the Yadu dynasty externally resembled the ritualistic performances performed by the Karmis. When a Karmi performs some ritualistic ceremony, his ambition is sense gratification, good position, good wife, good house, good children, or good wealth. But the ambition of the members of the Yadu dynasty was different. Their ambition was to offer perpetual faith and devotion to Krishna. All the members of the Yadu dynasty were great devotees. As such, after many births of accumulated pious activities, they were given the chance to associate with Lord Krishna in going to take their bath in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, or observing the regulative principles during the solar eclipse, or feeding the Brahmanas. In all their activities, they simply thought of devotion to Krishna. Their ideal worshipable Lord was Krishna and no one else.
Hare Krishna, Yaakov Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So who wants to read next?
Please accept my humble obeisances, Prabhu. Just Prabhupada.
Ribo.
Krishna.
I can read.
Okay, Prabhu. Ribo.
After After feeding the Brahmanas, it is the custom for the host, with their permission, to accept prasadam. Thus, with the permission of the Brahmanas, all the members of the Yadu dynasty took lunch. Then they selected resting places underneath big shadowy trees, and when they had taken sufficient rest, they prepared to receive visitors, among whom there were relatives and friends, as well as many subordinate kings and rulers. There were the rulers of the Matsya province, Ushinara province, Koshala province, Vidarbha province, Kuru province, Srinjaya province, Cambodia province, Kekaya province, and many other countries and provinces. Some of the rulers belonged to opposing parties, and some were friends. But above all, the visitors from Vrindavana were most prominent. The residents of Vrindavana, headed by Nanda Maharaj, had been living in great anxiety because of separation from Krishna and Balaram. Taking advantage of the solar eclipse, they all came to see their life and soul, Krishna and Balaram. The inhabitants of Vrindavana were well-wishers and intimate friends of the Yadu dynasty. This meeting of the two parties after long separation was a very touching incident. Both the Yadus and the residents of Vrindavana felt such great pleasure in meeting and talking together that it was a unique scene. Meeting after a long separation, they were all jubilant. Their hearts were throbbing and their faces appeared like freshly bloomed lotus flowers. There were drops of tears falling from their eyes. The hair on their bodies stood on end, and because of their extreme ecstasy, they were temporarily speechless. In other words, they began to dive in the ocean of happiness. While the men were meeting in that way, the women were also meeting one another in the same manner. They were embracing each other in great friendship, smiling very mildly, and looking at one another with much affection. When they were embracing each other in their arms, the saffron and kumkuma spread on their breasts was exchanged from the one person to another, and they all felt heavenly ecstasy. Due to such heart-to-heart embracing, torrents of tears glided down their cheeks. The juniors were offering obeisances to the elders, and the elders were offering their blessings to the juniors. They were thus welcoming one another and asking after each other's welfare. Ultimately, however, all their talk was only of Krishna. All the neighbors and relatives were connected with Lord Krishna's pastime in this world, and as such, Krishna was the center of all their activities. Whatever activities they performed, social, political, religious, or conventional, were transcendental. The real elevation of human life rests on knowledge and renunciation. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, devotional service rendered to Krishna automatically produces perfect knowledge and renunciation. The family members of the Yadu dynasty and the cowherd men of Vrindavana had their minds fixed on Krishna. That is the symptom of all knowledge, and because their minds were always engaged in Krishna, they were automatically freed from all material activities. This stage of life is called Yukta Vairagya, as enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. Knowledge and renunciation, therefore, do not mean dry speculation and renunciation of activities. Rather, one must start speaking and acting only in a relationship with Krishna. In this meeting at Kurukshetra, Kunti Devi and Vasudeva, who were sister and brother, met after a long period of separation, along with their respective sons and daughters-in-law, wives, children, and other family members. By talking among themselves, they soon forgot all their past miseries. Kunti Devi especially addressed her brother Vasudeva as follows: "My dear brother, I am very unfortunate because not one of my desires has ever been fulfilled. Otherwise, how could it happen that although I have such a saintly brother as you, perfect in all respects, you did not inquire from me as to how I was passing my days in a distressed condition of life?" It appears that Kunti Devi was remembering the miserable days when she had been banished along with her sons through the mischievous plans of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. She continued, "My dear brother, I can understand that when providence goes against someone, even one's nearest relatives also forget him. In such a condition, even one's father, one's mother, or one's own children will forget him. Therefore, my dear brother, I do not accuse you." Haribol, anyone can continue.
Ribo, Jacob Prabhu, can you read the next one?
Prabhu, I have about 10 beats or so. Maybe someone first, then I could
Okay, Prabhu. Okay,
almost
Haribo.
finish. Prabhu, thank you.
Vasudeva replied to his sister, "My dear sister, do not be sorry, and do not blame me in that way. We should always remember that we are all one, we are only toys in the hands of Providence. Everyone is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is under his control only that all kinds of fruitive actions and the resultant reactions take place. My dear sister, you know that we were very much harassed by King Kamsa, and by his persecutions we were scattered here and there. We were always full of anxieties. Only in the last few days have we returned to our own places by the grace of God." After this conversation, Vasudeva and Ugrasena received the kings who came to see them, and they sufficiently welcomed them all. Seeing Lord Krishna present on the spot, all the visitors felt transcendental pleasure and became very peaceful. Some of the prominent visitors were as follows: Bhishma Deva, Dronacharya, Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana, and Gandhari, along with their sons King Yudhishthira, along with his wife, and the Pandavas, along with Kunti, Srinjaya, Vidura, Kripacharya, Kunti Bhoja, Virata, King Nagnajit, Purujit, Drupada, Shalya, Drishtaketu, the king of Kashi, Tamagosha, Vishalaksha, and the king of Mithila, the king of Madras, formerly known as Madra, the king of Kekaya, Yudamanyu, Shusharma, Balika, along with his sons, and many other rulers who were subordinate to King Yudhishthira. When they saw Lord Krishna with his thousands of queens, they became fully satisfied at the sight of such beauty and transcendental opulence. All who were there personally visited Lord Balaram and Krishna, and being properly welcomed by the Lord, they began to glorify the members of the Yadu dynasty, especially Krishna and Balaram. Because he was the king of the Bhojas, Ugrasena was considered the chief Yadu, and therefore the visitors especially addressed him, "Your Majesty, Ugrasena, king of the Bhojas." Factually, the Yadus are the only persons within the world who are perfect in all respects. All glories unto you, all glories unto you. The specific condition of your perfection is that you are always seeing Lord Krishna, who is sought after by many mystic yogis undergoing severe austerities and penances for great numbers of years. All of you are in direct touch with Lord Krishna at every moment. All the Vedic hymns are glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. The Ganga water is considered sanctified because of its being the water used to wash the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. The Vedic literatures are nothing but the injunctions of Lord Krishna. The purpose of the study of all the Vedas is to know Krishna. Therefore, the words of Krishna and the message of his pastimes are always purifying. By the influence of time and circumstances, all the opulences of this world had become almost completely wiped out. But since Krishna has appeared on this planet, all auspicious features have again appeared due to touch of his lotus feet. Because of his presence, all our ambitions and desires are gradually being fulfilled. Your Majesty, King of the Bhojas, you are related with the Yadu dynasty by matrimonial relationship and by blood relationship also. As a result, you are constantly in touch with Lord Krishna, and you have no difficulty in seeing him at any time. Lord Krishna moves with you, talks with you, sits with you, rests with you, and dines with you. The Yadus appear to be always engaged in worldly affairs which are considered to lead to the royal road to hell. But due to the presence of Lord Krishna, the original personality of Godhead in the Vishnu category, who is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent, all of you are factually relieved from all material contamination and are situated in the transcendental position of liberation and Brahman existence. When they had heard that Krishna would be present in Kurukshetra because of the solar eclipse, the residents of Vrindavan, headed by Maharaj Nanda, had also decided to go there, and therefore all the members of the Yadu dynasty were attending. King Nanda, accompanied by his cowherd men, had loaded all the necessary paraphernalia on bullock carts, and all of the Vrindavan residents had come to Kurukshetra to see their beloved sons, Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna. When the cowherd man of Vrindavan arrived in Kurukshetra, all the members of the Yadu dynasty became most pleased. As soon as they saw the residents of Vrindavan, they stood up to welcome them, and it appeared that they had again regained their life. Both had been very eager to meet, and when they actually came forward and met, they embraced one another to their heart's satisfaction and remained in embrace for a considerable time. As soon as Vasudeva saw Nanda Maharaj, he jumped and ran over to him and embraced him very affectionately. Vasudeva began to narrate his past history, how he had been imprisoned by King Kamsa, how his babies had been killed, and how immediately after Krishna's birth, he had carried him to the place of Nanda Maharaj, and how Krishna and Balaram had been raised by Nanda Maharaj and his queen, Yashoda, as their own children. Similarly, Lord Balaram and Krishna also embraced King Nanda and Mother Yashoda and then offered their respects unto their lotus feet by bowing down. Because of their filial affection for Nanda and Yashoda, both Lord Krishna and Balaram became choked up, and for a few seconds they could not speak. The most fortunate King Nanda and Mother Yashoda placed their sons on their laps and began to embrace them to their full satisfaction. Because of separation from Krishna and Balaram, both King Nanda and Yashoda had been merged in great distress for a very long time. Now, after meeting them and embracing them, all their sufferings were mitigated. Hare Krishna. Anyone can continue.
No, I can't. No problem.
Okay, Haribol.
Okay. Okay. Jai Shri Prabhupada. After this, Krishna's mother Devaki and Balarama's mother Rohini both embraced Mother Yashoda. They said, "Dear Queen Yashoda Devi, both you and Nanda Maharaja have been great friends to us, and when we remember you, we are immediately overwhelmed by the thought of your friendly activities. We are so indebted to you that even if we were to return your benediction by giving you the opulence of the King of Heaven, it would not be enough to repay you for your friendly behavior. We shall never forget your kindly behavior toward us. When both Krishna and Balarama were born, before they even saw their real father and mother, they were entrusted to your care, and you raised them as your own children, fostering them as birds take care of their offspring in the nest. You have nicely fed, nourished, and loved them, and have performed many auspicious religious ceremonies for their benefit. Actually, they are not our sons. They belong to you. Nanda Maharaj and yourself are the real father and mother of Krishna and Balarama. As long as they were under your care, they had not even a pinch of difficulty. Under your protection, they were completely out of the way of all kinds of fear. This most affectionate care which you have taken for them is completely befitting your elevated position. The most notable personalities do not discriminate between their own sons and the sons of others. But there cannot be any personalities more noble than Nanda Maharaja and yourself. As far as the gopis of Vrindavan are concerned, from the very beginning of their lives, they did not know anything beyond Krishna. Krishna and Balarama were their life and soul. And the gopis were so attached to Krishna that they could not even tolerate not seeing him momentarily when their eyelids blinked and impeded their vision. They condemned Brahma, the creator of the body, because he foolishly made the eyelids which blinked and checked their seeing Krishna. Because they had been separated from Krishna for so many years, the gopis, having come along with Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, had intense ecstasy in seeing Krishna. No one can even imagine how anxious the gopis were to see Krishna again. As soon as Krishna became visible to them, they took him inside their hearts, through their eyes, and embraced him to their full satisfaction. Even though they were Embracing Krishna only mentally, they became so ecstatic and overwhelmed with joy that for the time being they completely forgot themselves. The ecstatic trance which they achieved simply by mentally embracing Krishna it is impossible to achieve even for great yogis constantly engaged in meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna could understand that the gopis were wrapped in ecstasy by embracing him in their minds. And therefore, since he is present in everyone's heart, he also reciprocated embracing from within. I don't know about, does someone else want to?
You can continue, Prabhu, if you want.
Okay, a little bit. Krishna was sitting with Mother Yashoda and his other mothers, Devaki and Rohini, but when the mothers engaged in talking, took the opportunity and went to a secluded place to meet the gopis. As soon as he approached the gopis, the Lord began to smile, and after embracing them and inquiring about their welfare, and he began to encourage them, saying, "My dear friends, you know that both Lord Balarama and myself left Vrindavana just to please our relatives and family members. Thus we were long engaged in fighting with our enemies and were obliged to forget you, who were so much attached to me in love and affection. I can understand that by this action I have been ungrateful to you, but still I know you are faithful to me. May I inquire if you have been thinking of us, although we had to leave you behind? My dear Gopis, do you now dislike remembering me, considering me to have been ungrateful to you? Do you take my misbehavior with you very seriously? After all, you should know it was not my intention to leave you, but separation was ordained by Providence, who after all is the supreme controller, and does as he desires. He causes the intermingling of different persons. He can dispossess them as he desires. Sometimes we see that the presence of clouds and strong wind, atomic particles of dust and broken pieces of cotton are intermingled together. After the strong wind subsides, all the particles of dust and cotton are again separated, scattered in different places. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the creator of everything. The objects which we see are different manifestations of his energy. By his supreme will, we are sometimes united and sometimes separate. We can therefore conclude that ultimately we are absolutely dependent on his will. Above, does someone want to in between?
Hare Krishna. Fortunately, you have developed loving affection for me, which is the only way to achieve the transcendental position of association with me. Any living entity who develops such unalloyed devotional affection for me certainly at the end goes back to home, back to Godhead. In other words, unalloyed devotional service and affection for me are the cause of supreme liberation. My dear Gobi friends, you may know from me that it is my energies only which are acting everywhere. Take, for example, an earthen pot. It is nothing but a combination of earth, water, air, fire, and sky. It is always of the same physical composites, whether in its beginning, during its existence, or after its annihilation. When it is created, the earthen pot is made of earth, water, fire, air, and sky. While it remains, it is the same in composition, and when it is broken and annihilated, its different ingredients are conserved in different parts of the material energy. Similarly, at the creation of this cosmic manifestation, during its maintenance and after its dissolution, everything is but a different manifestation of my energy. And because the energy is not separate from me, it is to be concluded that I am existing in everything. In the same way, the body of a living being is nothing but a composition of the five elements, and the living entity embodied in the material condition is also part and parcel of me. The living entity is imprisoned in the material condition on account of his false conception of himself as the supreme enjoyer. This false ego of the living entity is the cause of his imprisonment in material existence as the supreme absolute truth. I am transcendental to the living entity as well as to his material embodiment. The two energies, material and spiritual, are both acting under my supreme control. My dear Gopis, I request that instead of being so afflicted, you try to accept everything with a philosophical attitude. Then you will understand that you are always with me and that there is no cause of lamentation in our being separated from one another. This important instruction of Lord Krishna to the gopis can be utilized by all devotees engaged in Krishna consciousness. The whole philosophy is considered on the basis of the inconceivable simultaneous oneness and difference. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that He is present everywhere in His impersonal feature. Everything is existing in him, but still he is not personally present everywhere. The cosmic manifestation is nothing but a display of Krishna's energy, and because the energy is not different from the energetic, nothing is different from Krishna. When this absolute consciousness, Krishna consciousness, is absent, we are separated from Krishna. But fortunately, if this Krishna consciousness is present, then we are not separated from Krishna. The process of devotional service is the revival of Krishna consciousness. And if the devotee is fortunate enough to understand that the material energy is not separated from Krishna, then he can utilize the material energy and its products in the service of the Lord. But in the absence of Krishna consciousness, the forgetful living entity, although part and parcel of Krishna, falsely puts himself in the position of the enjoyer of the material world, and being thus implicated in material entanglement, he is forced by material energy to continue his material existence. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Although a living entity is forced to act by the material energy, he falsely thinks that he is the all in all and the supreme enjoyer. If the devotee knows perfectly that the Archa Vigraha or deity form of Lord Krishna in the temple is exactly the same Satchidananda Vigraha as Krishna himself, then his service to the temple deity becomes direct service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, the temple itself, the temple paraphernalia and the food offered to the deity are also not separate from Krishna. One has to follow the rules and regulations prescribed by the acharyas, and thus, under superior guidance, Krishna realization is fully possible even in this material existence.
Very well.
Very well.
Okay. The goddess is by Krishna in this sphere of simultaneous oneness and difference remained always in Krishna consciousness and thus became liberated from all material contamination. The consciousness of the living entity who falsely presents himself as the enjoyer of the material world is called Jiva Kosha, which means imprisonment by the false ego. Not only the gopis, but anyone who follows these instructions of Krishna becomes immediately freed from the Jiva Kosha imprisonment. Full Krishna consciousness is always liberated from false egoism. He utilizes everything for Krishna's service and is not at any time separated from Krishna. The gopis therefore prayed to Krishna, "Dear Krishna, from your navel emanated the original lotus flower, which is the birth site of Brahma, the creator. No one can estimate your glories or your opulence, which therefore remained always a mystery even to the highest thoughtful man, the masters of all yogic power. The conditioned soul fallen in the dark well of this material existence can very easily, however, take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Thus his deliverance is guaranteed." The gopis continued, "Dear Krishna, we are always busy in our family affairs. We therefore request that you remain within our hearts as the rising sun, and that will be your greatest benediction." The gopis are always liberated souls because they are fully in Krishna consciousness. They only pretended to be entangled in household affairs in Vrindavana. In spite of their long separation, the inhabitants of Vrindavana The inhabitants of Vrindavana, the gopis, were not interested in the idea of going with Krishna to his capital city Dwaraka. They wanted to remain busy in Vrindavan and thus feel the presence of Krishna in every step of their lives. They immediately invited Krishna to come back to Vrindavan. This transcendental emotional existence of the gopis is the basic principle of Lord Chaitanya's teaching. The Ratha Yatra festival observed by Lord Chaitanya is the emotional process of taking Krishna back to Vrindavan. Srimati Radharani refused to go with Krishna to Dwaraka to enjoy his company in the atmosphere of royal opulence, but wanted to enjoy his company in the original Vrindavan atmosphere. Lord Krishna, being profoundly attached to the gopis, never goes away from Vrindavana, and the gopis and the other residents of Vrindavana remain fully satisfied in Krishna consciousness. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 27th chapter of Krishna. Lord Krishna and Balarama meet the inhabitants of Vrindavana. Hari Bol.
Rivo, thank you, Prabhus, for reading. Okay, let's read one chapter more. Chapter 28. Draupadi meets the queens of Krishna. There were many visitors who came to see Krishna, and among them were the Pandavas, headed by King Yudhishthira. After talking with the gopis and bestowing upon them the greatest benediction, Lord Krishna came to welcome King Yudhishthira and other relatives who had come to see him. He first of all inquired from them whether their situation was auspicious. Actually, there is no question of ill fortune for anyone who sees the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Yet when Lord Krishna, as a matter of etiquette, inquired from King Yudhishthira about his welfare, the king became very happy by such a reception and began to address the Lord thus. My dear Lord Krishna, great personalities and devotees in full Krishna consciousness always think of your lotus feet and remain fully satisfied by drinking the nectar of transcendental bliss. The nectar which they constantly drink sometimes comes out of their mouths and is sprinkled on others as the narration of your transcendental activities. This nectar coming from the mouth of a devotee is so powerful that if one is fortunate enough to have the opportunity to drink it, he immediately becomes freed from the continuous journey of birth and death. Our material existence is caused by our forgetfulness of your personality, but fortunately, the darkness of forgetfulness is immediately dissipated if one is privileged to hear about your glories. Therefore, my dear Lord, where is the possibility of ill fortune for one who is constantly engaged in hearing your glorious activities? Since we are fully surrendered unto you and have no other shelter than your lotus feet, we are always confident of our good fortune. My dear Lord, you are the ocean of unlimited knowledge and transcendental bliss. The result of the action of mental concussion is to exist in the three temporary phases of material life: wakefulness, sleep, and deep sleep. But these conditions cannot exist in Krishna consciousness. All such reactions are invalidated by practice of Krishna consciousness. You are the ultimate destination of all liberated persons. Out of your independent will only, you have descended on this earth by the use of your own internal potency, Yoga Maya. And in order to re-establish the Vedic principles of life, you have appeared just like an ordinary human being. Since you are the Supreme Person, there cannot therefore be any ill luck for one who has fully surrendered unto you. When Lord Krishna was busy meeting various kinds of visitors and while they were engaged in offering prayers to the Lord, the female members of the Kuru dynasty and the Yadu dynasty took the opportunity of meeting with one another and engaging in talk of Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. The first inquiry was made by Draupadi to the wives of Lord Krishna. She addressed them, My dear Rukmini, Bhadra, Jambavati, Satya, Satyabhama, Kalindi, Shaibya, Lakshmana, Rohini, and all other wives of Lord Krishna. Will you please let us know how Lord Krishna, the Supreme Person of Godhead, accepted you as his wives and married you in pursuance of the marriage ceremonies of ordinary human beings? To this question, the chief of the queens, Rukmini Devi, replied, My dear Draupadi, it was practically a settled fact that princes like Jarasandha and others wanted me to marry King Shishupala, and as is usual, All the princes present during the marriage ceremony were prepared with their armor and weapons to fight with any rival who dared to stop the marriage. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead kidnapped me, the way a lion takes away a lamb from the flock. This was not, however, a very wondrous act for Lord Krishna, because anyone who claims to be a great hero or king within this world is subordinate to the lotus feet of the Lord. All the kings touch their helmets to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. My dear Draupadi, it is my eternal desire that life after life I may be engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, who is the reservoir of all pleasure and beauty. This is my only desire and ambition in life. After this, Satyabhama began to speak. She said, My dear Draupadi, my father was very much afflicted to the death of his brother Prasena, and he falsely accused Lord Krishna of killing his brother and stealing the Shivamantaka jewel, which had actually been taken by Jambavan. Lord Krishna, in order to establish his pure character, fought with Jambavan and rescued the Shivamantaka jewel, which was later delivered to my father. My father was very much ashamed and sorry for accusing Lord Krishna of his brother's death. After getting back the Shivamantaka jewel, he thought it wise to rectify his mistake, so although he had promised others my hand in marriage, he submitted the jewel and myself at the lotus feet of Krishna. And thus I was accepted as his maidservant and wife. After this, Jambavati replied to Draupadi's question. She said, My dear Draupadi, when Lord Krishna attacked my father Jambavan, the king of the Rakshas, my father did not know that Lord Krishna was his former master, Lord Ramachandra, and the husband of Sita. Not knowing the identity of Lord Krishna, my father remained continually engaged in fighting with him for 27 days. After this period, when he became very tired and fatigued, he could understand that since no one but Lord Ramachandra could defeat him, his opponent Lord Krishna must be the same Lord Ramachandra. He thus came to his senses and not only immediately returned the Shivamantaka jewel, but in order to satisfy the Lord, he presented me to him to become his wife. In this way, I was married to the Lord, and thus my desire to remain life after life a servitor of Krishna was fulfilled. After this, Kalindi said, My dear Draupadi, I was engaged in great austerities and penances in order to get Lord Krishna as my husband. When Lord Krishna became aware of this fact, he very kindly came to me along with his friend Arjuna and accepted me as his wife. Lord Krishna then took me away from the bank of Yamuna, and since then I have been engaged in the house of Lord Krishna as a sweeper, and the Lord is treating me as his wife. After this, Mitravinda said, My dear Draupadi, there was a great assembly of princes at my Svayamvara ceremony. Lord Krishna was also present in that meeting, and he accepted me as his maidservant by defeating all the princes present there. He immediately took me away to Dwaraka, exactly as a lion takes a deer from a pack of dogs. When I was thus taken away by Lord Krishna, my brothers wanted to fight with him, and later on they were defeated. Thus my desire to become the maidservant of Krishna life after life was fulfilled. After this, Satya addressed Draupadi in this way. My dear Draupadi, my father arranged for an assembly for my Svayamvara, the personal selection of an husband, and in order to test the strength and heroism of the prospective bridegrooms, my father stipulated that they each fight with his 7 ferocious bulls, which had long serpentine horns. Many heroic prospective bridegrooms tried to defeat the bulls, but unfortunately, they were all severely struck, and they returned to their homes as defeated invalids. When Lord Sri Krishna came, fought with the bulls, they were just like playthings for him. He captured the bulls and roped each one of them by their nostrils. Thus they came under his control, just like a goat's small kids come very easily under the control of children. My father became very pleased and married me with Lord Krishna in great pomp, giving as my dowry many divisions of soldiers, horses, chariots, and elephants, along with hundreds of maidservants. Thus Lord Krishna brought me to his capital city Dwaraka. On the way back, he was also assaulted by many princes, but Lord Krishna defeated all of them, and thus I have the privilege of serving his lotus feet as a maidservant. After this, Bhadra began to speak. She said, "My dear Draupadi, Lord Krishna is the son of my maternal uncle. Fortunately, I became attracted to his lotus feet. When my father understood these feelings of mine, he personally arranged for my marriage, inviting Lord Krishna to marry me and giving him in dowry one akshauhini or division of armed forces, along with many maid servants and other royal paraphernalia. I do not know whether I shall be able to have the shelter of Lord Krishna life after life, but still I pray to Lord that wherever I may take my birth, I may not forget my relationship with his lotus feet." Then Lakshmana said, "My dear queen, many times I have heard the great sage Narada glorifying the pastimes of Lord Krishna. I became attracted to the lotus feet of Krishna when I heard Narada say that the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, was also attracted to his lotus feet. Since then, I have always been thinking of him, and thus my attraction for him has increased. My dear queen, my father was very affectionate toward me. When he understood that I was attracted to Krishna, he devised a plan. His plan was like that devised by your father. During the Svayamvara, the prospective bridegrooms had to pierce the eyes of a fish with their arrows. The difference between the competition in your Svayamvara and mine was that in your case the fish was hanging openly on the ceiling in clear view, but in my case the fish was covered with a cloth and could only be seen by the reflection of the cloth in a pot of water. That was the special feature of my Svayamvara. The news of this device was spread all over the world, and when the princes heard of it, they arrived at my father's capital city from all directions, fully equipped with armor and guided by their military instructors. Each one of them desired to win me as his wife, and one after another they raised the bow and arrow, which was left there for piercing the fish. Many could not even join the bowstring to the two ends of the bow, and without attempting to pierce the fish, they simply left the bow as it was and went away. Some with great difficulty drew the string from one end to the other, and being unable to tie the other end, they were suddenly knocked down by the spring-like bow. My dear queen, you will be surprised to know that at my Shyamvara meeting there were many famous kings and heroes present. Heroes like Jarasandha, Ambashta, Shishupala, Bhishmasena, Duryodhana, and Karna were of course able to string the bow, but they could not pierce the fish because it was covered and they could not trace it out from their reflection. The celebrated hero of the Pandavas, Arjuna, was able to see the reflection of the fish on the water, but although with great caution he traced out the location of the fish and shot an arrow, he did not pierce the fish in the right spot. His arrow at least touched the fish, and so he proved himself better than all other princes. All the princes who had tried to pierce the target were disappointed, being baffled in their attempts, and some candidates had even left the place without making an attempt. But when at last Lord Krishna took up the bow, he was able to tie the bowstring very easily, just as a child plays with a toy. He placed the arrow, and looking only at the reflection of the fish in the water, he shot the arrow, and the pierced fish immediately fell down. This victory of Lord Krishna was accomplished at noon during the moment called Abhijit, which is astronomically calculated as auspicious. At that time, the vibration of Jai, Jai was heard all over the world, and from the sky came sounds of drums beat by the denizens of heaven. Great demigods were overwhelmed with joy and began to shower flowers on the earth. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, not going at the, I can.
Yes, Prabhu.
At that time, I entered the arena of competition, and the ankle bells on my decks were sounding very melodiously as I walked. I was nicely dressed with new silken garments, flowers were decorating my hair, and because of Lord Krishna's victory, I was in ecstatic joy and smiling very pleasingly. I was carrying in my hands a golden necklace bedecked with jewels, which was glittering at intervals. My curling hair encircled my face, which was shining with a bright luster due to the reflection of my various rings. My eyes blinking, I first of all observed all the princes present, and when I reached my lord, I very slowly placed the golden necklace on his neck. As I had already informed you from the very beginning, my mind had been attracted by Lord Krsna. Thus I considered the garlanding of the Lord to be my great victory. Soon as I placed my garland on the neck of the Lord, there sounded immediately the combined vibration of mridangas, tatahas, kanchas, drums, kettle drums, and other instruments, causing a tumultuous sound. And while the music played, expert male and female dancers began to dance, and singers began to sing sweetly. I cheered Draupadi when I accepted Lord Krsna as my worshipable husband. He also accepted me as his maidservant. There was a tumultuous roaring among the disappointed princes. All of them became very agitated because of their lost desires. But without caring for them, my husband, in his form as the four-handed Narayana, immediately took up me on his chariot, which was drawn by 4 excellent horses. Expecting opposition from the princess, he armored himself and took up his bow named Sharnika. But our celebrated driver Daruka drove the beautiful chariot without a moment's delay toward the city of Dwaraka. Thus, in the presence of all the princes, I was carried away very quickly, exactly as a deer is carried away from the flock by a lion. Some of the princes, however, wanted to check our progress, and thus, equipped with proper weapons, they opposed us, just as dogs tried to oppose the progressive march of a lion. At that time, due to arrows released by the Sharanga bow of Lord Krsna, some of the princes were cut on their left hands. Some of them lost their legs, and some lost their heads and their lives. Others fled from the battlefield. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then entered the most celebrated city of the universe, Dwaraka, and as he entered the city, he appeared like the shining sun. The whole city of Dwaraka was profusely decorated on that occasion. There were so many flags and festoons and gates all over Dwaraka that the sunshine could not even enter the city. I have already told you that my father was very much affectionate to me. So when he saw that my desire was fulfilling by getting Lord Krsna as my husband, in great happiness he began to distribute to friends and relatives various kinds of gifts, such as valuable dresses, ornaments, bedsteads, and sitting carpets. Lord Krsna is always self-sufficient, yet my father, out of his own accord, offered my husband a dowry consisting of riches, soldiers, elephants, chariots, horses, and many rare and valuable weapons. Presented all these to the Lord with great enthusiasm. My dear Queen, that time I could guess that in my previous life I must have performed some wonderfully pious activity. And as a result, I can in this life be one of the maidservants in the house of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When all the principal queens of Lord Krsna had finished their statements, Rohini, as the representative of the other 16,000 queens, began to narrate the incident of their becoming wives of Krishna. My dear queen, when Baumasura was conquering all the world, he collected wherever possible all the beautiful daughters of the kings and kept us arrested within his palace. News of our imprisonment reached Lord Krsna. He fought with Baumasura and released us. Lord Krsna killed Baumasura and all his soldiers, and although he had no need to accept even one wife, Nevertheless, by your request, married to all 16,000 of us. Dear Queen, our only qualification was that we were always thinking of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, which is the way to release oneself from the bondage of repeated birth and death. My dear Queen Draupadi, please take it from us that we are not after any opulence such as kingdom, empire, or a position of family enjoyment. We do not want to enjoy such material opulences, nor do we desire to achieve the yogic perfections, nor the exalted post of Lord Brahma, nor do we want any of the different kinds of liberation, Dalokya, Sarsti, Samipya, or Saija. We are not at all affected by any of these opulences. Our only ambition is to bear on our heads, life after life, the dust particles touched to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. The goddess of fortune also desired to keep that dust on her breast, along with the fragrant saffron. We simply desire this dust, which accumulates underneath the lotus feet of Krishna, as he travels on the land of Vrindavana as a cowherd boy. The gopis especially, and also the governed men and the aborigine tribesmen, always desire to become grass and straw on the streets of Vrindavana, to be trampled on by the lotus feet of Krishna. My dear Queen, we wish to remain as such life after life, without any other desire. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the second volume, 28th chapter of Krishna. Draupadi meets the queens of Krishna. Jai Shri
Haribol.
Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for reading.
Jai Shri Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Are we done? Or okay, there's prayers.
Yes,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Let's read
Thank you, Prabhu.
So tomorrow we continue from sacrificial ceremonies performed by Vasudeva. Haribol. Okay, Shiksastakam prayers. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam Shreyah kairava chandrika vitaranam Vityavadu jivanam Anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamritasvadanam Sarvatma snapanam param vichayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam.
नाम्नामकारि बहुधानि च सर्वशक्तिस्तत्रार्पितानि यमितः स्मरणेन कालः एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन् ममापि दुर्दैवमीदृशम् इहाजनिनानुरागः
Inat api sunitsina tarariva sahitna. Manina madana kirtina.
न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीश कामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनि
अयि नन्दतनुजा किङ्करं पतितां मां विषमे भवां बुधौ कृपया तव पादपङ्कज स्थितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तय
नयनं गलदश्रुधारयां वदनं गद्गदारुत्थया गिरा पुलाकैर्निशितां वपुः कदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति
Gaitam nimesina chakshusa pravishmaitam sunedam jagatsaram kuvintaravena hanamam.
आश्लिष्य वा पादरदाम्पि नष्टु माम् अदर्शनान् मर्महदां करोतु वा यदा तदा वा विदधातु लम्पटो प्राणनाथ
Haribol. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
O my Lord, your holy name can render your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
One should chant the holy names of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a bee, one devoid of all sense of all prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. Such a state of mind one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your
O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name?
O Govinda, feeling your separations, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditional.
हरि बोल श्री शिक्षास्तकम की जाय पंचतत्व की जाय नित्यानंद प्रभु की जाय
Jai,
चैतन्य
Jai,
महाप्रभु की जाय जगत गुरु श्रील भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी
Jai,
की जाय जय गौर प्रेमानंद
Jai,
हरि हरि बोल
Hari, Hari, Bo. Thank you so much for your kind assistance.